Picture this. It's a Sunday night. You've had a decent few months driving Uber, selling on Etsy, maybe earning a little from YouTube, and a small voice in your head asks whether you need to tell the ATO about any of it. Here's what I want you to know before you lodge. Since the 1st of July 2024, every major gig and creator platform in Australia reports your earnings directly to the ATO. Even if you only made a few $100s, ATO 2024. So by the time you sit down to do your return, the ATO often already has your numbers. Let me show you exactly what that means for you. If you've got a side hustle and you've never quite known how the tax works, that's not a failure. Most people are never told, and the rules genuinely changed under our feet. Record numbers of Australians now earn on the side, ATO 2023, and undeclared income is increasingly triggering warning letters, amended assessments and interest sometimes years after the money was earned. Infinity 2026. So today I'll walk you through 3 simple moves before you hit lodge. Check what the ATO already knows about you, decide whether you're a hobby or a business, and set up a 10-minute tax buffer on every payment. Stay with me. The first number is the one that surprises everyone. Here's the number that makes people sit up. The maximum failure to lodge penalty for an entity is $12,500, and that's on top of back tax and interest, ATO 2024. It's 5 penalty units per 28 days, up to 5 periods, at $313 a unit. Now, for most individuals, your real exposure is a lot lower than that, so don't panic. But here's the part most people miss. The bill almost never arrives on its own. It comes with back tax, daily compounding interest, and penalties stacked on top, which is exactly why getting ahead of it is worth your time. So here's your plan. 3 moves. First, you check what the ATO already knows about you. Second, you decide, is this a hobby or a business? And third, you ring-fence your tax on every payment as it lands. Each one takes you under 20 minutes, and every single one is free. Let's start with how this actually works, so it's not a mystery. Since the sharing economy reporting regime rolled out, most large platforms you use, Uber, Uber Eats, DoorDash, Menulog, Airbnb, Stays, YouTube, Twitch, Patreon, OnlyFans, Amazon, eBay, Etsy, and the major crypto exchanges now send your income data straight to the ATO under Mandatory Data Sharing Rules, LDB 2024. The ATO then automatically matches that data against your return. If what you declare doesn't line up with what they've been sent, they can issue an amended assessment, a bill for the shortfall, plus interest and penalties. Knowing this is your advantage because it means you can check the same data first. And here's where it gets real for you. The old thinking was simple. It's just a few Uber trips or some Etsy sales. No one will notice. The reality now? The ATO receives your platform income in near real time. So even small or irregular payments may already be visible before you hit lodge. ATO 2023. In the example I'll walk you through shortly, around 82% of her side income was already sitting in the ATO's pre-filled data. The gap between what you think they can see and what they actually see has all but closed. And that's genuinely good news because it means there's nothing to guess at. Now here's the part that catches most people out. The ATO doesn't recognize the words side hustle at all. As far as they're concerned, your activity is either a hobby or a business, ATO 2023, if you're earning money through continuous repeated activity for the purpose of making a profit. Running regular sessions, selling regularly, advertising, and seeking customers, then you're most likely running a business, not a hobby. Business.au.gov period 124, and that one distinction changes everything about your obligations. Let me show you why getting it right actually works in your favor. Here's the honest part I want to be upfront about. This doesn't play out the same for everyone. If you should have treated your activity as a business and didn't, the ATO can backdate GST registration once your turnover crosses $75,000, which means you might owe 10% GST on past sales, plus interest and penalties, ATO 2024. And if you haven't kept records, they can disallow your deductions, pushing your tax bill up. But, and this is the upside, treat it correctly from the start and you get to claim legitimate expenses that genuinely reduce your taxable income. So the goal isn't to avoid being a business, it's to be one properly. Let me bust the most common myth I hear. It goes, I'm just making a bit of extra cash. It's a hobby. I don't need to tell the ATO. Here's the fact. Both the ATO and business.gov.au are clear. If your side hustle makes money, you must declare it. And continuous profit-driven activity is a business, not a hobby. ATO 2023, business.co.5, EU 2024. Add in that most major platforms already report your earnings and they won't notice, simply isn't a plan anymore. So what does getting this wrong actually cost you? In this example, underreporting plus misclassifying lands a sudden ATO bill of about $9,750. That's back tax of $8,125 plus roughly 20% in penalties and interest, modeled ATO frameworks. But here's the part that really stings. That same $9,750 invested at 5% for 30 years could have grown to around $42,000 by the time you retire. Author's estimate. One avoidable mistake. Two very different futures. Let me make this concrete with someone whose situation might feel familiar. Meet Jess. She's 32, a full-time marketing coordinator on $85,000. On weekends, she drives Uber and Uber Eats, sells handmade decor on Etsy, and runs a small fitness boot camp in the park. Last year, her side hustles brought in $28,000 gross. She lodges an individual return. No company, no GST. And here's exactly what Jess found when she looked properly. Discovery 1, and this is the one that stunned her. $23,000. That's how much of her $28,000 in side income was already sitting in the ATO's pre-fill data, almost 82%. Before she typed a single figure. ATO, LDBB 2024. Uber, Uber Eats, and Etsy all report her earnings under mandatory data sharing rules. Jess had genuinely assumed the ATO only ever saw her PAYG salary. If you've assumed the same thing, you're in good company, but now you know to check first. Discovery 2 is the good news, $8,000. Running through the ATO's tests, Jess realized she intends to make a profit, runs boot camps on a regular schedule, and promotes a structured Etsy shop, which means she's a business, not a hobby. ATO 2023, business.gov.au 2024. And that classification actually works in her favor because it lets her claim $8,000 of legitimate expenses, fuel, materials, equipment, platform fees, cutting her taxable business income from $28,000 right down to $20,000. Being a business isn't the punishment people fear, it's often the deduction they're missing. Discovery 3 is the painful one, and it's the one I most want you to avoid. $6,500 on her $20,000 of net profit at a marginal rate of 32.5%. That's the extra income tax she owed, modeled. The problem? Jess had treated her side income as spending money and set aside nothing. Had she banked 25 to 35% of each payment as it came in, she'd have had $5,000 to $7,000 ready and waiting. Infinity 22, 2026. Instead, the bill arrived as a shock, and paying late triggers the general interest charge, adding hundreds more. ATO. This is exactly what Move 3 fixes. Now stretch Jess's situation over 5 years of quietly underreporting, and the ATO eventually catches up with a single combined bill of about $9,750, back tax plus penalties and interest, all landing at once, modeled ATO frameworks. That's the real cost of treating genuine income like pocket money. The reassuring part, every bit of it is avoidable with the 3 moves coming up. So let's make it personal. Could this be you? Sign 1. You earn through Uber, Etsy, Airbnb, YouTube, or a similar platform. Sign 2. You honestly don't know whether your activity counts as a hobby or a business. And sign 3. You haven't set aside a single dollar for tax on that side income. If even one of those rings true, don't worry. The next 3 moves were written for exactly your situation. So where does this leave you? You don't need to overhaul your whole financial life to sort this out. You just need a few specific, practical steps you can start today. 3 moves. Let's walk through them together. Move 1. Check what the ATO already knows about you. Your pre-fill data is fed directly by those platform reporting feeds, so it's genuinely the best preview you can get of what the ATO sees. Log into MyGov, link the ATO service, then open income tax, then lodgements, then pre-fill and reports. Pull up the latest year and compare every platform income line against your own records and bank statements. No surprises later, you see it first. Here's exactly how you do it. 1. Sign in to MyGov and link the ATO service if you haven't already. 2. Go to income tax, then lodgements, then pre-fill and reports. 3. Compare the platform income shown there against your own records. And here's what good looks like for you. Your declared income equals or exceeds the pre-fill figures. With no income lines, you're quietly hoping no one notices. Move 2. Work out whether your side hustle is actually a business. Use the ATO's checklist alongside the business.gov.au guidance. Focus on profit, intent, repetition, and whether you operate in a business-like way. If the indicators point to business, apply for an ABN through the Australian Business Register and check whether your projected turnover could reach the $75,000 GST threshold. ATO 2024. Just so you know, this is general information for your own situation. A registered tax agent is worth the call. Here's exactly how you do it. 1. Read the ATO's In Business checklist on profit, intent, and repetition. 2. Compare your own situation against the hobby versus business examples on business.gov.au. 3. If it's a business, apply for an ABN and check the $75,000 GST threshold. What good looks like for you? You can confidently say, I'm a hobby or I'm a business, and you hold an ABN if you need one. Move 3, and this is the one that saves you the most stress. Build a 10-minute tax buffer on every payment. The simplest way to never get a surprise bill is to never let it be a surprise. Open a dedicated side hustle tax savings account in your online banking. Then, every time a side hustle payment lands, move a slice straight into it and use ATO online services to check your estimated tax and any PAYG installments after you lodge. Here's exactly how you do it. 1. Create a dedicated side hustle tax account at your bank. 2. Transfer 25 to 35% of every payment straight in, as 2026 guidance recommends. Infinity Ardian 22/20/126. 3. After you lodge, check your estimated tax and adjust that percentage for next year. What good looks like for you? By lodgement time, that account matches or beats the tax you owe. No scramble, no payment plan. You might be wondering why all this matters now, so let me show you the timeline. Between 2022 and 2024, the sharing economy reporting regime rolled out, legally requiring rideshare, accommodation, and gig platforms to report your payments to the ATO LDB 2024. In 2023, the ATO ran its Join the Bustle of a Side Hustle campaign, urging record numbers of taxpayers to declare all income and check whether they are in business. ATO 2123. And across 2025 and 26, the ATO has expanded its data matching to receive income reports in near real time, so even small, irregular payments are now visible. The net's already tightened. The only question is whether your return matches it. Once you've done all 3 moves, here's how you'll know it worked. When you check, your declared income should match or beat the ATO's pre-fill data. You'll have confirmed you hold an ABN if your activity is genuinely a business. And if a tax bill does land, your dedicated tax account already covers it. No scramble, no payment plan, no stress at lodgement time. Everything I've shared today comes from the ATO, business.gov.au, and independent tax analysis. I've put all the links in the description below so you can read them yourself and check your own situation. So here's what you now know that most people with a side hustle don't. The ATO sees your platform income before you lodge. So your job is simply to check it, classify it, and ring-fence the tax. The single best thing you can do today is open your pre-fill and set up that tax account. It'll take you about 20 minutes. Next, I'll show you the work-from-home deductions the ATO is quietly disallowing in 2026, because that one catches even careful people out. If this saved you from a nasty surprise at tax time, come along for the next one. I break down the tricky tax stuff into steps you can actually use. I'm Sophie, and I'll see you there.